Warning, this podcast contains heavy spoilers for not just one movie, but entire franchises. We highly recommend going and watching these movies before listening to us as a companion piece that stitches all the timelines into one creepy, crime-ridden story. There will be no more spoiler warnings. We do not break character. After this, there is no turning back. You've been warned. Hit the music.
You are talking about the nonsensical ravings of a lunatic mind.
It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive! It's alive!
Hello, freaks and fiends, and welcome to It's Alive podcast. This is a true crime, paranormal, interstellar podcast covering unbelievable stories that sound like they were ripped straight from the pages of a Hollywood script. I am your host, the outlaw Dr. Harley Ray Smokenstein, THC, and with me, as always, is my very own Scream Queen, the perfect combination of beauty and brains, the bride of Smokenstein, the in the heart, the expert, the grindhouse, guts and gore, the gorgeous, the sexy Bunny Rose.
Hi.
And, yeah. So for 7 weeks, we've gone deep, and I mean fucking deep, down the rabbit hole that is the Sawyer family legacy. In week 1, we covered the Hardesty incident that brought the name into public consciousness to begin with. In week 2, we examined the family tree and the origins of the Rabbit clan. From weeks 3 to 5, we watched as time and time again the Sawyers reached for something bigger than themselves, falling each time, even failing each time. Falling, failing, it's the same thing. But always managing to hang on.
And then came Otis B. Driftwood and the Firefly family. Again, the Fireflies. I'm just going to call them the Fireflies. Because if I say Firefly family...
It's not like we're going to have to say it a bunch in this one. We've moved on from
every
that.
time.
But the last time they're in here, they caught you.
That was a story that at first seemed separate, but DNA would later prove it was the final branch of the bloodline reaching out one more time, attempting to take their massacre from statewide to nationwide through macabre art and horror spectacle. And with the deaths of Otis, also known as Chop Top, and Baby, also known as Babby Sawyer, the world relaxed, convinced the massacre had finally come to an end. But just like every other chapter we've covered in this family's history, there always seems to be one loose thread hanging on.
One member, rumored, never proven, constantly discussed, but never truly investigated. That member was the monster, the beast, the sometimes manipulated, often misunderstood Letherface, Jedediah Bubba Sawyer. I was going to go full Paul Heyman with the beast.
I thought that was coming, yeah.
To be honest with you, I was tempted to just go full on fucking Brock Lesnar intro with the beast incarnate, Bubba Sawyer! He always gets high-pitched when he does.
I know he does.
Right away, every time the dust settled and the Sawyer corpses were put in the ground, this one legendary member was never around to answer for the family crimes. It happened so often that law enforcement eventually convinced themselves that Letherface wasn't a man at all, but a persona, a gimmick, a costume worn by different members of the clan to instill fear and control violent situations.
That was until recently, when it all came crashing down in Harlow, Texas, just 2 counties over from the original crimes in Newt and Rugsville. But before we get into that, we need to look at what led us here.
And to do that, we have to examine the survivors of the family, few and far between as they are.
Yes. So to unravel this investigation, we need to go to the source, the people who claimed to have seen this beast in the flesh, literally. Now, we've already covered Sally in depth in the early episode, but it doesn't hurt to give a quick refresher. Sally survived an encounter with Drayton Sawyer, Norbert Nubbins Sawyer, and Jedediah Bubba Sawyer in 1973.
Yeah, the lone survivor from a group of 5. She was the first to claim the existence of the legendary Leatherface. She made it to rescue services covered in blood, screaming about murder. Sally said she had escaped from a window in hell. She told a frantic, disjointed story. A cannibal. See, if you can't get the fireflies, I can't get the cannibals. A cannibal family in an isolated farmhouse, chainsaws, bones, her brothers and friends butchered for barbecue, furniture made from human remains. Not long after that, she slipped into a catatonic state where she remained until her death just a few short years later.
Then, in 1986, there was another survivor, Vanita Brock, also known as Stretch.
These days, Vanita Brock is better known for her work as a news reporter across multiple local and affiliate stations in Texas. She survived encounters with Drayton, Bubba, and Robert Chop Top Sawyer, later known as Otis B. Driftwood. In fact, she played a key role in bringing Drayton Sawyer to justice, leading to his execution in the gas chamber in Dallas, Texas, and the incarceration of Chop Top himself for over a decade.
Then there's Michelle Shatnell. With the help of Benny Foray, she survived the largest gathering of Sawyers recorded, an incident that led to the deaths of multiple family members.
Yeah, she faced Anne, Alfredo, Richard Tinker, that's one person, Richard aka Tinker, Edward aka Tex, and Bubba Sawyer, along with Bubba's 12-year-old daughter, Barbara Babby Sawyer, later known as Baby Firefly.
Michelle took a very different path after her ordeal. She turned to faith, encountered the church, and eventually became a reverend, choosing to let belief guide her healing.
Just funny when you look at it. 3 different women, 3 very different outcomes.
Yep.
Sally was consumed by fear. Stretch was driven by survival and justice. And Michelle transformed her trauma into purpose.
Yep. And then there was Jenny Jones, another survivor, this time of Bubba, William Earl, and Vilmer Sawyer. Her experience pushed her toward protection. She joined law enforcement, eventually working her way into the Texas Sheriff's Department. She had seen deeper into the darkness than most and came to understand that the family itself was only part of the problem. What enabled them, what allowed them to exist, was something far more dangerous. For a long time, she dismissed Bubba. She saw him as slow, controlled by his siblings, and someone who wouldn't survive on his own.
But then came the reports out of Rugsville. The All-American Massacre, the House of 1,000 Corpses, the Devil's Rejects.
And then the DNA confirmations. Otis and Baby, proven Sawyers, and that changed everything. Because if those two could stay hidden for that long and cause that level of chaos, then Texas and the wider world would never truly be safe while any part of that bloodline remained alive. Jenny didn't stop after her initial investigation. At first, she operated as a vigilante, revisiting old Sawyer properties years after the fact, listening to the Robert Sawyer tapes over and over again, searching for anything, a hint, a lead, something that might point her in the right direction. And it became an obsession. Eventually, the hunt for Bubba consumed her completely, taking over every second of her life and costing her job with the Sheriff's Department.
I understand this, and I've always had the same thought.
Yeah.
That if a serial killer comes for me, and I mean, like, imagine, like, especially when you look at, like, say, Joseph D'Angelo. Joseph Joe D'Angelo? I don't know. The Iran's fucking Golden State Killer.
Oh, yeah.
How he used to phone, even when he was, like,
years
inactive
after
as a
the
killer.
fact. Yeah.
He was still phoning the victims or the victims' families and taunting them and letting them know that he was still there. You're constantly going to be looking over your shoulder. As long as this person is alive and well and out there, forever you're going to be thinking, they could come for me at any stage.
Yeah.
You know, they could remember me. They could decide, fuck it, this is a loose thread I got to go take care of. Or it could be the same way it's eating her up to try and find him.
Exactly.
It could be eating him up as like, this is the bitch that destroyed my family.
Yep.
This is the woman who killed my brothers.
Yep.
I have to go find him. She doesn't know what his full cognitive ability is, really. You know, I mean, even in her situation where she is around him, how much of, because we know how theatrical the Sawyers can get, we saw that with the Fireflies, how much of what they're doing in front of you is show, and how much of it is genuine insanity. Do you know what I mean? How much of it is we're doing this to scare the living shit out of you and control every aspect of the situation?
I think regardless of whether it's show or not, the fact that they made it show to control the situation is because it's pure insanity.
But my point is still there, is like, you know, was Bubba really a non-verbal giant, or was just like the cops believing that he was a different family member every time?
Yeah.
What if he was just one family member, which we find out he is? But you know, that he was putting on this facade to scare you, and that actually afterwards, when she leaves, he pulls off the mask and he's like, well, fuck, I gotta go get her. Someday, when she least expects it.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, as long as the serial killer's out there, I can get the idea of it harming your mental ability to get over it, to progress.
Of course, I'd see them
Because
everywhere.
you know, yeah, that's it. And especially then if you don't know their face.
Mm-hmm. Oh,
That
anything
makes it-
shaped like them from the back, from the front.
Everybody's
Yeah.
a suspect at that fucking point. So every time she sees anybody who is over 6 foot hulking size, it's like, oh, you know, you're gonna panic. So I get it. I get why she would become this obsessed about it. You know?
Yeah. And from that point on, Bubba became her full-time focus. She obtained licenses as both a bounty hunter and a private investigator. And from then on, if a crime hit the airwaves that even remotely resembled a Sawyer attack, she would be there, ready to investigate and ready to eliminate. Arrest, though, was never her goal. Not after Rugsville, not after Otis and Baby. And as far as Jenny was concerned, the bloodline needed to end. And she was determined to be the one to do it. Her search took her across the country.
Yeah. So this is where it gets interesting, because we find out that this happens more often than we believe. She investigated a family of killers known as the Odettes, operating deep in the woods of West Virginia. She looked into another group, the inbred Jupiter family, who were said to hunt and consume travelers passing through the Mojave Desert near Victorville, California. She even followed a lead on a deaf pig farmer living as a hermit in the woodlands outside Syracuse, New York.
Part of him.
That case on its own, though, is an incredible story of Stockholm Syndrome. And honestly, we'll definitely be covering that in a big way sometime down the line.
Yeah.
For now, I think after this, you might want to leave the woods behind.
Few ghosts and ghouls.
I got one good more wood story ready for us, but it's a nice wood story, and we will get to that at the end of this.
Still a hulking giant.
Sure is.
But deep down, Jenny always believed the truth was simpler. A creature like Letherface wouldn't stray too far from home. And if he was alive, he was still in Texas or close to it. And that's why this next case stood out.
Yeah, to be honest, when this story broke, it felt like they had finally found it. You know? The theory behind the method of operation was almost too perfect. Like something pulled straight from the history of the Sawyers. It would have been poetic in a twisted way if it turned out to be true.
But DNA would eventually rule it out. Still, before we get to the final location and the end of Bubba's story, this case is worth digging into, especially the theories that made it so convincing before science stepped in and reduced it to just another backwards serial killer story.
Yeah, and after this one, I'm never going camping or hiking ever again.
And this incident took place last year, deep in the woods of Chattanooga, Tennessee.
I love saying
I was just about to say I love saying it. Yeah.
Chattanooga!
So that's 2 states over from Texas, so not outside the realm of possibility when it comes to Bubba.
Yeah, getting all the way to New York unassisted. I mean, looking and behaving the way he does.
Yeah.
It always felt unlikely.
Yeah.
But Tennessee, that's plausible.
Of course.
And Jenny thought the same. I mean, they got similar accents in Tennessee. I think most of the time I try and do a Texan accent.
It's a Tennessee accent.
I only realized this week when we had Happy's Place on TV.
They're in Tennessee, are they?
Yeah. And Reba McEntire was walking around talking about how she was in Tennessee. I was like, oh, that's kind of the accent I try and put on when I'm trying to do Texas.
Much of much.
If you had asked me, I would have said Tennessee and Texas were right next to each other.
Yeah,
In fact,
same
they're
as.
2 states over. Shocked me. Yeah. So, yeah. So let's get into this story.
So when a woman named Macy Blackhurst emerged from those woods, covered in blood, and claiming that a giant masked figure had brutally murdered her partner and near fiancé, Chase Williams, Jenny went straight to the scene.
Yeah. Yeah, sounds familiar, all right.
Yeah. She used connections from her time in law enforcement to gain access to both the crime scene and the evidence. After that, she secured an interview with Macy herself. What she found was deeply disturbing. This wasn't just another killing. It was a massacre that rivaled, if not surpassed, anything previously associated with the Sawyers. What made it different was the apparent lack of motive beyond pure psychological fracture. There was no survival instinct, no twisted family philosophy, just chaos driven by a broken mind. That alone made it feel like Bubba, unleashed and unrestrained. Among the evidence recovered was a collection of old, battered dolls, dozens of them, and each one damaged, altered, or subtly mutilated. Investigators reported that many had been found bound to trees or hanging from branches throughout the surrounding woodlands. And at the centre of it all was a structure described as a life-sized dollhouse.
Yeah, before DNA ruled this one out from connecting in any way to the Sawyer bloodline, investigators genuinely believed they had finally found Jedediah Sawyer.
Yeah. The suspect, later nicknamed Dolly, due to the absence of any identifying records, was believed to have lived with an older male and female, identified by Macy as parental figures. And according to her account, Dolly had suffered a severe accident in childhood that left her face badly burnt. Because of this, she wore a porcelain doll mask. Descriptions suggest that she had significant learning difficulties, was nonverbal at the time of the attack, and the house itself reflected a distorted version of domestic life.
Again, this all sounds very familiar. Yeah, I get where the connection is.
No, I understand that, yeah.
So downstairs was functional. True, I mean, it was a bit run down, but it was functional. There was a basic kitchen, dining area, and a living space. Upstairs was more revealing. There was a parent's room, sparsely furnished with a bed, wardrobe, dressing table. Very old school. I mean, I know, like, you know, parents' bedrooms are generally... I mean, our bedroom looks like a teenager lives in it. But, I mean...
Yeah, my mom says you've got a very young taste.
Yeah. But generally, adults, normal adults, not us, would go with the more minimalistic style.
You are
and especially in this setting where we will see that everything is very... retro.
Old. Vintage.
That was the word I was looking for. Thank you very much.
No
problemo. Dolly's room herself resembled that of a child from another era. Porcelain dolls, antique tea sets, prams, cots, worn down teddy bears, and outdated toys filled the space. Next to it was a nursery, a crib, baby toys, a changing table, and a rocking chair. And then there was one final room. Bare. 2 stained mattresses on the floor, chains fixed to the wall.
Following the evidence review, Jenny conducted an interview with Macy Blackhurst, and this is her account. I remember thinking it was supposed to be a perfect day. Chase had planned this hike out in the mountains somewhere quiet, miles away from anything. He was acting different, nervous but trying to hide it. And I had this feeling. I didn't say it out loud, but I knew. I thought he was going to propose. We started noticing these dolls along the trail, just placed there, sitting on rocks, hanging from branches, watching you as you passed. It was creepy, yeah, but I didn't think too much about it. I was too caught up in my own head, too excited about what I thought was coming. And then we heard it. Music, like a music box, slow, off. But not loud, but loud enough that you couldn't ignore it. It didn't belong there. And Chase said he was going to check it out, and just like that, stepped off the trail and followed the sound. I stayed behind thinking he'd be gone a minute, maybe 2. I didn't know then what he walked into. I found out later he saw her first, that woman. She was out there in the woods crying over a head, mourning over it. Later we would find out it was the head of some sort of mother figure she had. And when she saw him, she attacked. She used a shovel, broke his leg, and then she kept going, hit him again and again until his jaw was almost torn off his face. Just left him there like he was nothing. I didn't know any of that at the time. He was gone a few minutes before I started calling out. At first I thought he was messing with me, trying to build suspense or something. But there was no answer. So I followed the path he took, and then I saw her. She was big, not just tall but solid, standing in the woods like she belonged there. She was wearing this porcelain doll mask, like something meant to look innocent, but it wasn't. Not out there, not on her. And she was digging. I didn't understand what I was looking at until I got closer. There was a body, headless, and she was grieving over it like she'd lost something. And then she saw me. I ran. I didn't think, I just ran. I could hear her behind me crashing through the trees like she didn't care about being quiet. She caught me. I don't even remember exactly how, just hands on me, and then everything went black. When I woke up, I was in a crib like a baby. The room was decorated like a nursery. Soft colours, toys, everything trying to feel safe, but it wasn't. Nothing about it was safe. And that's when I realised she brought me there, that woman. Dolly. That's what I started calling her. There was someone else in the house. A man locked in another room. He told me to listen carefully, so the only way to survive was to play along, to do what she wanted. He kept telling me there was a key hidden somewhere in the house. I didn't understand at first what he meant by play along, until she came back. She treated me like I was her baby, forced me into it, babbling to me like I was a child, making me act like one, punishing me if I didn't, rewarding me if I did. It was humiliating, and worse than that, it felt like she was trying to erase who I was and replace it with something else. I played along. I had to. Whenever I got the chance, I searched the house, every corner, every room. Eventually, I found the basement. That's where I found the key. It was hanging from a doll, but it wasn't really a doll. Its head, it was human. Someone's actual head attached to this thing like it was just another toy. That's when it really hit me, what she'd done to people before me. She caught me with the key, and what she did after that, I still feel it. She mutilated my ear. Just took part of me away like it didn't matter. Then later she put it back. Like I was something she could break and fix whenever she wanted to, as long as I behaved. So I behaved. I waited. I pretended. Eventually she trusted me enough to let her guard down. When she fell asleep, I used the key. I freed the man, and that's when everything twisted again. He wasn't another victim, he was her father, and he didn't care about me. Not really. He grabbed me, held me like I was a shield. Said he'd use me to get past her and to escape. When she came in, she didn't hesitate. She killed him, just like that. Ripped him open like he was nothing. That's when I heard Chase. His voice out in the woods, weak but alive. I ran. I got out through a window and found him. He was barely holding on. I tried to help him, I really did, but she found us. And this time, she finished it. Right in front of me. Something in me broke then, or maybe it snapped into place, I don't know. But I stopped running, fought back, I hit her, I damaged the mask. And for a second, I saw her real face underneath, burned and destroyed, like whatever she used to be was already gone. I grabbed a shovel, used whatever I could, even a body that was lying there. I didn't think about it. I just did what I had to do, and I got away. I made it out to the road and found a park ranger, and I thought it was over, but it wasn't. She came out of nowhere and killed him right in front of me, like it was nothing. I didn't think. I got into his vehicle and I drove straight at her. I hit her and I didn't stop. I just kept going. I don't even remember how far I drove. I just remember the ring. The ring Chase never got to give to me. I found it, put it on my finger, and I started laughing and crying, and I couldn't stop either because I was alive and he wasn't.
Oh, serious shit.
Serious shit.
Now, when she said, we're going to pick this apart a small bit. When she said she was put through humiliating situations, she wasn't lying. Macy said at one point she was so scared she wet herself. This led to a nappy change. A rotten baby's pacifier was repeatedly stuffed in her mouth to keep her quiet. And she was even spanked by this giant for misbehaving. And if that wasn't enough, at dinner time, Dolly tried to breastfeed her.
Oh, God.
And it's shit with the problem, because there's more to this than we could even fucking cover in this episode, because we still got Bubba to deal with. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the father figure, who, and that's it. Like she says, he turned out to be a father. We're about to get into that in a few minutes, so I'm not going to overtalk it. But we find out he isn't an actor; he's a father figure. But I mean, he was very, according to her, very soft spoken when he was trapped in the room. She found him in that room with the mattresses we were talking about, chained up, and the key was to get him off, to get him out.
Yeah.
So that he could help her get out. But as soon as the chains were off, his gentle demeanor switched into full fucking predator mode. And he grabbed her and he had her and he was basically he was trying to get out of the house, but the entire time explaining to Macy how basically she was going from the fucking frying pan into the fire because this guy had plans on taking her into the woods and repeatedly raping her before killing her himself and moving on. And the thing about it was that this woman, Dolly, had a huge, you know how you'd see the doors with the piece of wood across it to stop, like a latch kind of thing. She had this giant weighted one that no real, like a railway sleeper or something like that. Like an average human of average strength would not be able to lift this on their own. Yeah. But again, this is a game where the connections started to be made. Was she had the same level of strength that Bubba had, and this wasn't a problem for her. So this guy, I think we find out later his name. He claimed his name was Tobe. That he was holding Macy hostage. Okay. To get. Is it Macy? It is Macy. Macy, yeah. Sorry, because I kept getting confused earlier on. Macy is the lady's name. But he was holding her hostage because he knew it was Dolly's toy, and Dolly would do as she was told to get her toy back because of the child mentality. Okay. But no, whatever happened after that led to her getting her hands on him and not the door. I don't fucking know exactly. But another little detail that I find interesting as well, because she doesn't really explain it in her little interview, but when she says she mutilated my ear and then just put it back on again later. Sewed it? Yeah, like a toy. Like if you had a teddy bear and the teddy bear's ear got ripped off, you'd sew it and then on. Later you get your mom to sew it back on. That's literally what you did. Ripped her ear half off and then stitched it back together with a sewing needle and thread. I think if I'd introduce her to super glue. Obviously, Dolly had learned her parenting techniques from teachers in my primary school because that's how they dealt with us. Yeah, kids, they didn't beat us. They weren't allowed to beat us by the time I got to school, but they were allowed to pull us by the ear around the school. I used to get fucking constantly just every time I caused trouble. Grab you by the ear and pull you to the corner or pull you to those red walls in the playground that we had in the yard. And you'd be brought up by the ear to one of these red walls, and you'd have to stand there for the rest of the break. Yeah, you see, after I got there, they weren't even allowed to pull you by the ear. They were allowed to threaten you and tell you what objects they'd use, but they weren't allowed to use them. We were told the master had a leather with all these coins sewn in, and once you were sent to his room, my God, he was going to beat the shit out of you with it. Obviously, he never did, but we were threatened. That works in primary school. It doesn't work at a certain age in secondary school. Some girl or guy could come along and be like, yeah. Hey, daddy. Yes, master. Do your worst. And suddenly that headmaster's never ever using that thread again. So after the ordeal, investigators uncovered remains scattered throughout the property. Various body parts belonging to an estimated 50 unidentified victims were found both inside the house and across the surrounding woods. Now, for the theory behind the supposed Bubba connection, the man who claimed to be Dolly's father had no official records attached to him. DNA testing did nothing to clarify his identity. The only information we have comes from his own claim to Macy, where he identified himself as Tobe and stated that he was Dolly's father. However, age discrepancies and forensic analysis suggest that they were not related by blood. The same conclusion was reached regarding the so-called mother figure, who remains on record as Jane Doe. Despite her body and head being found buried separately, investigators believed she died of natural causes. While DNA testing was still pending, criminologists began to speculate. The physical build, the behavioral patterns, the level of aggression, all of it aligned with what had long been associated with the Letherface persona. Then there was the doll element, which obviously added another layer to the theory. Yeah, the working idea was, and I love this. This just seems so perfect that it couldn't be too good to be true. Yeah. Well, but in a very macabre kind of way, kind of, I get it. It shouldn't be a poetic ending to a violent story, but it seemed that way. The working idea was that after the events of 1994, a lost and grieving Bubba had encountered this childless couple. They took him in, pitied him, and in doing so managed to keep him somewhat docile. Specialists hypothesized that after losing his family and after being separated from his daughter, Bubba mentally fractured. He then adapted to the distorted version of family life offered by the couple, who in turn enabled and sustained his violent tendencies. By 1994, Bubba's sense of identity was already unstable. Within the Sawyer family, he had taken on multiple roles as their numbers dwindled. By the time Vilmer was killed, Bubba was seen wearing a long black wig and an evening dress with painted nails. A stark contrast from 1973, when he was described wearing a suit and a tie at dinner and a butcher's apron while carrying out the family's work.
At least he gets changed for dinner.
The theory suggests that his fractured identity carried forward. While living with the couple, he may have assumed the role of a child within the household while projecting a parental role onto his victims. The doll aspect was believed to reflect a warped attempt to recreate the family life he had lost, particularly his connection to Babby Sawyer after she had been taken in by the Firefly family in 1990.
So the presence of a female body was explained through the possibility of hormone treatment. Some theorized that Bubba had been given estrogen, altering his physical appearance and voice over time. At the time, the theory held weight. The evidence appeared to support it, and many believed Bubba Sawyer had finally been found. But science doesn't bend to theory. When the DNA results came back, there was no match to the Sawyer family or to any known individual, and that ended the speculation.
See, that's what I'm saying. It sucks. It would have been...
Sucks.
Not that it would have been a perfect ending. I mean, that would mean he had... realistically...
That would mean he'd carry on slaughtering.
When we get into his actual ending, he didn't kill anybody from 1994 until 2026. So that's actually a nicer ending.
It's good 22 years, like.
For 50 more people to get fucking absolutely demolished by this giant in a doll's mask. I mean, again... This is a story I think that we could get way, way deeper into once more information comes out about it.
28 years.
But there isn't a lot there at the moment, bar one witness's encounter and a bunch of unidentified dead bodies. Exactly. But the theory was solid, to be fair.
It was.
I mean, when I first heard about it, I said to you, I was like, this has to be him. It has to be.
Yeah.
This fits perfectly. Every aspect of it fits perfectly.
Yep.
You know, it was shocking, but what can you do? Like you said, the science does not bend to theory.
No,
you hear that, religious people? Science does not bend to your fun stories.
Like that the devil put the dinosaur bones there to try catch you out. Fuck me. So, for now, the origins of the so-called Dolly case remain unknown. With no surviving witnesses beyond Macy, the full truth of what happened in those woods may never come to light. One thing, however, was confirmed. This was not Bubba Sawyer. And for Jenny, that meant that the job wasn't finished. So she returned to Texas and waited for the next sign, the next pattern, and the next outbreak of violence that might point her in the right direction. And she didn't have long to wait, because just over a year later, only a few months ago in Harlow, Texas, Bubba would resurface, and this time it wouldn't be hidden in the shadows. This time it would be seen by everyone.
Yeah, before I get into my little bit here, why would they say that the fucking dinosaurs were buried there by the devil? Why not say they're the devil's beasts rising up?
No, because that's the thing. The devil's constantly testing your faith. So they believe that the devil put the dinosaur bones there to test your faith in God, because if the dinosaurs came first, well, then the Adam and Eve weren't first.
Out of their fucking mouth is what tests
creationists, man.
Right? Anyway, Bubba didn't just return, he went viral. The legacy of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre didn't just continue, it went live on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok in the most brutal way imaginable, even. Imagine that. I'm starting to talk like Dolly now, huh?
Babbling. So, Harlow, much like Nuke before, it had once been a thriving rural agricultural town. And just like Nuke, it couldn't keep up with the modern world. Over time, Harlow faded, not overnight, but slowly, until it became what it is now, a ghost town. The town's economy had been deeply tied to newt. Farmers from Harlow would bring their livestock to the slaughterhouses there and earn a decent living. But when those slaughterhouses shut down, everything changed. Farmers were forced to sell to larger corporations, and those corporations paid significantly less and charged for transportation to processing plants now located miles away. The decline wasn't as immediate as what had happened to newt, but it was inevitable. Rising costs, tighter regulations, and shrinking profits pushed farmers to the brink. Mortgages fell into default. Banks moved in, and piece by piece, the town emptied.
And see, this is... All right, young people who watch this show, we are about to school you old school style. Because I'm only learning this. This is something that I've never paid attention to the idea of how... Like, I mean, we're talking here, like, different counties, economics. But America's a big place, so I can understand how one county can feed off of another county and it can affect how they... But we learned in real time in the last few weeks how one country can alter. But I mean, we've been learning it for the last few years, and it's something that I suppose until Russia hit Ukraine, where I didn't realize how much another country's decisions could affect my standard of living.
Yep.
And you see that then where like cost of living starts to rise, electricity bills start going through the roof. And then lately you have that fucking orange prick Trump sucking Netanyahu's cock and doing whatever he's fucking telling them to do. And that drove the price of oil through the fucking roof, which essentially shut our country down completely because everybody in this country decided, fuck like, you, we're not paying, and went on fucking strike went on a protest for about 2 or 3 days there where nothing happened. Blockades everywhere.
Fair fucking play to them.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely.
But that's the thing about it is, I mean, you look at something that's happening 2 towns over from you and you think, it doesn't fucking affect me. It's not my problem.
Of course it's going to. It's inevitable.
But if a factory closes down and in the next town over, people in your town are losing jobs. Huh? You're losing tourists. There's essentially, like, even with us here, we have a festival every year in Tralee called the Rose of Tralee Festival. For decades, that thing was a gold mine. Had big name musicians coming and playing on stage. We had James Brown, we had fucking Westlife down here. We've had big names play on that stage, and it was because money was being pumped into it. And then they stopped. They just stopped putting as much money into it and stopped investing so much into it and started to hold back on stuff. And now suddenly the tourist side of things has dried up there, which means it's harder now to bring it back to where it was, because the money that was being spent every year and reinvested into the festival isn't there anymore, which means now all the businesses that relied on that 1 week of serious fucking business. I mean, I remember, like, the streets were packed. You had to, like, it was like walking from one end of the town to the other was like walking in a queue. It was like real slow movement. It was really hard. It was like being at a fucking rock concert or something like that, you know, but it was just all over town. And that's the thing, like these small things. So when you're looking at like global economics and stuff like that, like when you hear us, like, because I always think that it's like, there must be Americans out there thinking, you're Irish. What the fuck do you give a shit what Trump does? Shut the fuck up. You know, it's like, well, not really, because your dumbass president did a dumbass fucking thing. And then that caused my home heating oil to go double in price.
Literally double. That's not an exaggeration. Doubled.
It caused fucking petrol stations and diesel stations to close down across the country because blockades would not allow the fucking fuel in because it was too expensive. Now, that's not all your fault. Our government was also a fault too, because we are in a billions of euro surplus, and they refused to cut the taxes that they were putting on it.
You know what pisses me off more is the ones that stood up were like, told you we need to be investing into green electricity. And it's like, right, hear you, but what the fuck does that have to do with the problem now? In the long term, yes, that's not getting us out of the shitter now, like.
But that's the way it is, and that's what essentially happened here. Newt was the first to suffer with the closure. Harlow got the blowback afterwards, and like we said, it took a little longer, but bit by bit by bit, that little town got destroyed too. And that's how these ghost towns begin to
pop up.
appear in the same area and region.
So by the early 1990s, Harlow was all but abandoned. All but one holdout. Virginia Ginny McCumber. Ginny was a lifelong resident of Harlow, and she ran a small orphanage for abandoned children and troubled youths, something she had dedicated her life to since 1967 when she was just 30 years old. It began with children who had lost fathers to war and mothers to grief, and at its peak, the home never housed more than 20 children at a time, but it was enough. It was purpose. As Harlow declined, so did the orphanage. The children grew up and moved on, and with no new families, no new population, there were no new children to take their place. Eventually, the home fell silent. The loss of both her town and her purpose sent Ginny into a deep depression that lasted for years. Concerned for her well-being, her sister stepped in. She convinced Ginny to join her and her husband Tobe on a cross-state trip in their new RV, hoping a change of scenery might help. That RV would become a crucial part of the Sawyer story.
Yeah, it was the same vehicle Jenny Jones later used to escape Vilmer and Bubba Sawyer in 1994, as covered in the Vilmer case. The encounter with the Sawyers caused Toby Spottish to lose control of the vehicle, resulting in a crash that killed both him and his wife. Moments later, Vilmer Sawyer would also be dead. Jenny Jones escaped with the help of that nasty bastard, Jeffrey Rotman. Rest in peace, my hole, you dirty cunt. Leaving Bubba behind, alone, confused, and without any remaining family to guide him.
Ginny, who had been sleeping in the back of the RV, survived the crash. And she was the first to come face to face with Bubba after the deaths of what he believed were his last surviving relatives. But Ginny didn't see a monster. She didn't see a killer. She saw a lost child. Difficult, damaged, and dangerous, but not beyond saving. In that moment, she shared in his grief. And instead of waiting for authorities to arrive, and instead of reporting what had happened, she made a choice. She left and she took Bubba with her. Together, they returned to Harlow, where Ginny cared for the last Sawyer in Texas, keeping him hidden, controlled, and for the most part, content for over 30 years.
Enter Dante Spivey and Melody Hooper. If you spend any time online, you'll probably recognize those names.
Yep.
Dante built his following through cooking content, teaching people how to make high-end restaurant quality meals on a budget. It was smart, accessible, and it caught on fast. And if the Sawyers had TikTok in their time, maybe we wouldn't be in this predicament right now. They would have seen Dante's videos and been like, hey, we don't need to cook people. We can just cook this nice and cheap if we follow his ingredients and fucking recipe. Melody, on the other hand, came through a more familiar influencer route. Arts and crafts, you all thought I was going to say OnlyFans, you dirty bastards. Arts and crafts, home organization, lifestyle hacks, the kind of wholesome, digestible content that thrives online. From there, she transitioned into social media management, which is how she eventually connected with Dante. She began managing his online presence, and together they made a lot of money.
And with that success came ambition. They started planning something bigger, not just another business, but an investment, a vision. They wanted to build a town, a utopian space removed from modern American politics, free from violence, the division, the constant noise. But this idea didn't come out of nowhere. For Melody especially, it was rooted in trauma.
Yeah, she had a difficult upbringing. Her mother died of breast cancer when Melody was still a teenager. Her father didn't cope well with that loss. He turned to booze heavily. At the same time, he held strong political views. A long-time member of the NRA. The look how big my dick team is. A committed Republican voter and a vocal supporter of Donald the Dickhead Trump across all 3 election cycles. And let's hope it stops at 3, Don. Keep it a 3, buddy.
When Trump failed to secure a second term in 2020, his behavior only became more intense. For Melody, who leaned in the opposite direction politically, home life became a constant battleground. Arguments were frequent, tension was constant. And on top of that, she found herself stepping into a parental role for her younger sister, Lila.
Shit, I meant to look this up beforehand. I forgot.
I'll call her Lila.
It looks like Lila.
Lila is central to what comes next.
It's Lila.
It
Lila
is.
is L-E-E.
We had this conversation when we
Lila is
covered
Lila.
Norman Bates. There was a Lila in the Norman Bates story, I'm pretty sure.
Hey, Lila. Look up the Oasis song really quick.
No.
Go on.
Are we going to get charged for that?
I didn't mean play it. I just meant see how it's spelled.
Lila is central to what comes next. She became the catalyst for everything. So Lila was the victim of a school shooting, and most of her friend group didn't survive. She did, but not without consequences. She was shot, leaving her with both physical injuries and long-term psychological trauma. PTSD around firearms and a heavy sense of survivor's guilt that never really left her. She saw herself as ordinary, especially when compared to her friends, many of whom had been high achievers with clear futures ahead of them. Their father's reaction didn't help. If anything, it made things worse. Rather than stepping back, he doubled down. He became more vocal about gun rights, more aggressive in his beliefs. He argued that schools should have armed guards and that people needed to be prepared. And that if Lila, my God, I just prefer the name Lila. And that if Lila had trained with them, she might have been able to defend herself. For Melody, that completely missed the point. Once Lila had physically recovered, Melody made a decision. She took her and left. She stepped fully into that parental role, putting distance between them and their father. But leaving home didn't mean safety, and it didn't fix the wider problem. And that's where the idea began to take shape.
Yeah, Oasis are no help. They spell it Lyla.
That's Lila.
So it's still got to be Lila.
Y is usually an I sound. Lila.
It works. Yeah. We'll go with Lila. I don't think we say her name as much, and this is mostly Melody.
Just call her L.
But again, this is, I mean, I know I've said it multiple times on this podcast, but I mean, literally, days ago, the elite saw what the regular people were capable of with guns in their hand. Now, they didn't make, and I know to them, it strengthens their argument. So it was like, nobody got killed, and our good guys with the guns got him first. But that's a stupid fucking argument. Because we live in a country where nobody's allowed guns. And yes, the gangsters still manage to get their hands on guns. But guess what? They don't use them on us. They use them on each other. But they know if they use them on us, they're going to get fucking harder time when it's time to fucking pay the piper. Yeah. So, I mean, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely fucking stupid. And that's the thing about it. That countries like America, because I can't think of any other country in the world, where guns are legal to that level.
Australia wasn't it? And then there was like a couple of school shootings, and they're like,
there was one big shooting, and they were like, no.
Which is how America should have followed suit.
That was an interesting story too. We might do that in a live action someday when we're doing a bigger school shooting story on this. But it's just I don't think you realize how stupid you seem to the world when we fucking look at this situation. When it's so easy to answer this fucking question. I mean, I don't even think the rest of the world at this point we're even willing to compromise with you at this point. It's like, fine, you want safety, have your rifle, have your fucking little handgun, have your little rifle, whatever, a hunting rifle or something like that. There's your home protection. They're in a solo, unless you're expecting an entire army or an entire gang to come to your door to rob you. You have no need for an AR fucking whatever. You have no need for an automatic fucking rifle. You have no need for a gun that shoots more than one bullet a second.
But is the right to bear arms not just there in case your government gets too much and starts going against the people?
That is exactly the argument. That is the belief, and that's why it's in their constitution, is that the regular person can arm themselves if they're in a situation like they're in right now, where their fucking leader is an absolute fucking lunatic and has... It's essentially to stop a dictatorship like the Nazis or something like that happening in America. You're failing at that, by the way. And that's the idea. That was the general idea. But again, that was put into a constitution.
That's about 300 years old.
Fucking 20 minutes just to load the fucking gun with one bullet.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
So you need about 10 men so that you can keep firing continuously. Like,
so they were not thinking automatic rifles when this came out.
I would assume if we had the home protection technology that we had now, the founding fathers would be like, "Do you really need guns? You just pay for this or pay for that. Just get this in your house, get that in your house."
And I mean, I think it's been proven through America's own protests and attempts at civil disobedience with their No Kings March and stuff like that. Even if, and this is the problem, and this is why why your government and your army are the big bad bullies that they are. They still have bigger weapons than you.
They have weapons that can make you puke.
That's what I'm saying. If ye the people stood up and said, "That's it, we're fighting back against the government." They still got the bombs and the weird technology, and like Amy said, the fucking machines that can just put out a sound and make you puke blood. And I mean, they have better technology.
That happened in Venezuela.
The government,
yeah.
That's how they took out the Venezuelan fucking president.
Mm-hmm.
They did a covert mission, 15 guys, dropped down all the helicopters. They fucking turn on this fucking machine that blasts out a fucking sound that makes every one of the president's guard puke themselves and shit themselves to death. And then they pick up the president and walk the fuck out of there. No damages on their side. So, I mean, your constitutional right is pointless because at the end of the fucking day, your government still has more power than you. And then the other side, so I said this to you, when shit started to like look bad over there, when they were rioting a little bit there earlier on in the year in LA and stuff like that over ICE.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, you kind of have a double problem here because this isn't all the people of America rising up against the fascist government. This is the people who didn't vote for Donald Trump fighting back against people who did vote for Donald Trump and his fascist government and his army. Which means, number one, no matter what way you look at it, he won the vote, which means there is a vast majority of your country. He didn't win the popular vote, but he won the vote, which means still close to half of you were like, yeah, let's bring him in again.
It's funny watch them all go, I regret voting for Donald Trump, though. Yeah.
But there are not enough of them regretting it. Mean that your fucking right to have a gun in your hands is going to help you against all of them.
I think there's not enough of them being mature enough to admit that they're regretting it.
When you have fucking multiple fucking school shootings, multiple church shootings, multiple public shootings in the space of 1 week, you gotta kind of look and say, well, what's the issue here? And the safest way to deal with this issue is to remove guns from circulation. You talk about your war on drugs. How come you don't just decide, well, do you know what would be great? How about we all go on drugs? That way we're all in an altered state of mind and we'll all be happy. No, you fight against the bad ones and try and take them away so people don't hurt themselves using the very bad drugs such as heroin, meth, blah, blah.
But regardless of that, ICE are now using the fact that you carry a gun for the fact that, it was in your holster, so you might have pulled it, so we shot him.
Yeah. Even though you can have a license to have a concealed firearm,
you can.
Or one that has to be seen, and it's stupid. It's also their excuse for shooting fucking. And to the most part, it's black men behind the wheel of their car. They'll ask the black man in the car to show us your license. He will go reach for the glove box to get his license.
They'll be like, oh my God, he's reaching for the glove box. So you fucking told him to give you his license.
Which is why all those dumb fucks have to walk around wearing body cams now. But they just switch off the body cams.
But do you ever see the videos from like the dash cam videos of black males being asked for license or being stopped? And I can feel their anxiety, and it's like I couldn't live in that. I could not live in that. No, couldn't live like that.
Black people in America instantly know that once they see cop sirens, hands are at 10 and 2 on the steering wheel. They do not fucking move. Do not make any twitch or movement without this fucking man.
I'd be like, yes, officer, lean over to my glove box and you can take my license out of there. I'm not moving my hands.
But
not giving him any fucking excuse.
We talk about generational fucking trauma here, right?
Mm-hmm.
About with the British and all that stuff and the alcoholism. Generational trauma there is having fear of a white man with a gun and power coming up and telling you, do exactly as I tell you and I mightn't shoot you.
Yeah.
I still might, but I might.
I mean, a tail light broken, can escalate pretty fucking fast over there.
Fucking ridiculous. But again, it's like talking to a fucking child who doesn't want to give up a dangerous toy. Just keep fighting back. And like I said, instead of looking at this White House fucking attack on fucking the weekend as, holy shit, maybe we shouldn't allow our citizens to have guns like this, they look at it as in, thank God all these guys inside here were heavily armed and able to stop the arms, man. It's like, no.
We've stopped armed people here before without ever having to let off a bullet. There's something crazy. These statistics from Germany, the amount of bullets the German police let off in 1 year compared to how many bullets the American police.
Yeah. I mean, we do have an armed response unit here.
I've seen them twice.
But it's a specialized armed response unit for specialized cases. No.
But there was that day that woman came into where I was working with the knife going mad, and the armed response unit was called, and if that was America, that woman would have been shot dead.
I thought it was a man.
It was a woman. Was it a man? I can't remember.
I thought it was a man.
This is ages ago. It was a man. Sorry. And if that was America, he'd have been shot dead. By about 6, 7 o'clock that evening, that person was removed from, not one shot fired. And this was the armed unit, like. Not one shot was fired. Everybody was fine. Everybody was safe. Nobody was injured. And they removed that person from the situation. If that was America, the armed unit would have gone in. No, the normal cops would have gone in and opened fire.
Yeah. To America, that's a fictional story. Muslim man walks in with knife and causes problem. Survives.
But he wasn't Muslim. He walked into a Muslim shop. It was the Muslim shop downstairs. And then there was like the...
But he was a foreigner, yeah?
I think so. I think he was foreigner. I think so.
Yeah. Understand what he was saying. He tried to get through the door and you stopped him.
I rang to call the guards.
Wasn't there a doorway?
There was a doorway
from your office down into the shop, and you would try and block it to stop him from getting in tea.
Pretty much.
Whew. Interesting. Anyway,
it was crazy. I was like, I'm okay, but this is what's after happening. Loving the gossip.
Okay, so back to Dante and Melody and their dream of a utopia without guns.
One day, while talking through all of this with Dante, the concept clicked. What if they created their own environment? A controlled one. They could find a rural ghost town far removed from the chaos of modern life, buy up the abandoned properties from banks looking to offload them cheaply after mortgage defaults. Then they could invite a carefully selected group of people to invest, restore the town together, and build something intentional, a self-contained, peaceful community, a fresh start.
Yeah, sounds like a cult origin story to me. We've heard this story so many times before, even in this series. The Driftwood Collection, a bunch of people who want peace, love, and to get away from the reach of the man.
That's not going to happen in America.
Great in theory, but eventually some charismatic, narcissistic lunatic will come in, sleep with the right people, spread the right ideology, and before you know it, your little slice of utopia is surrounded by the FBI and ATF, and you're being kept awake at night by a giant speaker playing the sound of animals being slaughtered on repeat. Just ask David Koresh, even though he was a paedophile and stocking way too many guns.
But that's
with the guns
thing.
and the paedophilia, fucking America, Jesus.
So despite the cult leader risk looming over their idea, they began researching. And it didn't take long before they found Harlow, Texas. It had everything they were looking for. Isolation, open space, and near total lack of population. Aside from 1 or 2 occupied buildings, the town was effectively empty, available. They contacted the bank, negotiated a deal, and purchased the majority of the derelict properties. Harlow was theirs. The auction date was set for March 17th, St. Patrick's Day. Dante and Melody, both very aware of the culture around the holiday, wanted no part in the alcohol-fueled chaos that would take over the cities. Choosing that date gave them the perfect excuse to get out and focus on their project without distraction.
I strongly dislike these two already. Not because they shit in our holiday. I agree with them in the regard that the Yanks really overplay their claim to our cultural identity, especially when it comes to Paddy's Day. They lose the run of themselves a little bit. I mean, on the other side as well, is like, who the fuck is Patty?
I've never heard. Patty is a woman's name, not a man's name.
I've never met an Irish person named Patty.
Never named. No.
The only Patty I know is Patty and Selma from the fucking Simpsons.
There is that, and our really topical at the moment is ordering an Irish car bomb as a drink. You
Well,
absolute.
I see
fucks.
the humor in that.
No, but I can see the offensive.
But,
I can see.
But again, we don't get offended by stuff like that. We almost wear that shit like a weird badge
But
of
I
honor.
feel
like,
for the people that are surviving and have been maimed in the likes of Oma and
when
stuff
did
like
you
that.
get soft?
I'm
You
not
start giving on
soft.
about Lucky Charms now in the fight.
No,
in
they can
Irish
keep their
and
Lucky
Boston
Charms. I just think an Irish car bomb, considering our history as a country, is pretty fucked up because we don't go over there and order Twin Towers or fucking Boston fucking whatever.
I will make you a Twin Towers drink, no problem. We'll figure that one out. That'd be hilarious. But on the other side, is it that they have the Irish car bomb? Would it be okay if we did it here in this country? Because we have an awful sense of humor about it.
We have an awful sense of humor. If an Irish person walked in and ordered an Irish car bomb, whatever, I wouldn't blink an eyelid. But if an American came over and thick American accent.
This is what I like about us as fucking Irish people as a culture. That stuff doesn't bother us. That we do see the humor in that. That we do look at that and are like, that's a serious incident. But I mean, again, that is where our fucking alcoholism and trauma comes into play. We don't get caught up in the background of the joke of like, you know, the dark side of it. Yeah. And it's just like, that's funny. Give me two. I'll drink them.
Again, I'd have that reaction if it was an Irish person, someone that had...
I 100% agree with you in the sense of if we walked into a bar and said, give me 2 burning Twin Towers.
2 school shootings.
Yeah. I want a Columbine and 2 Twin Towers.
It's not funny. The incidents themselves are not funny, but this is the comparison. Like, what the fuck do you think would happen if we walked into an American bar and asked for them? I don't know if they've even been invented yet.
Give me a Ronald Reagan shooting on the side, please. They're going to get upset about this shit.
Yeah.
But outside of their weirdness about the Irish holiday, that's not what bothers me about Dante and Melody.
No.
These people are the best example of 2 kids with no real life experience thinking they know what's best for everyone else. Yeah. If the Harlow thing had worked out, you know, it would have went from utopia to dictatorship overnight.
Absolutely.
They'd have had to have hired a team of Dennis Raiders just to keep the homeowners' rules in place. And one Dennis Raider in this world is too much, so that should tell you what I think of this fucking idea.
So ahead of the auction, Dante hired one of Harlow's few remaining residents to carry out basic maintenance on the properties, just enough to make them presentable. And his name was Mo Richter, a mechanic by trade, but more broadly, a handyman, the kind of person who could turn his hand to almost anything and make it work.
Yeah, he wasn't particularly thrilled about the arrival of the new owners, but he understood reality.
Mm-hmm.
Harlow, as it was, you know, been gone for a long fucking time.
Yep. The journey out to the town was mostly uneventful, but as they got closer, they were stopped by local law enforcement. The police had been made aware of their arrival and wanted to get a sense of who exactly these new owners were. Melody handled the interaction. She spoke with Sheriff William Hathaway, and the conversation went better than expected. Harlow wasn't entirely a random discovery. Melody and Lila's grandmother had grown up there, and when Melody casually recited the town's old motto to the sheriff from memory, it struck a chord with the sheriff.
When Harlow's sunflowers bloom, winter is doomed.
That was enough. He warmed them quickly and handed over his card and made things simple. Respect the town, and he'd respect them. And with that, they were allowed to continue on their way. And not long after, they stopped for fuel, and that's where Lila saw it first. A wanted poster. The image showed a man with a severely deformed face. Around the shop, there were trinkets and souvenirs, chainsaw-themed items among them. Lila picked up a chainsaw-shaped corkscrew more out of curiosity than anything else, and she asked the man behind the counter about the poster.
Before we get into that, this does kind of point out that they are able to poke fun at themselves. At least the Texans are. I mean, Irish car bomb, going to a place known for fucking chainsaw massacres, and they got chainsaw fucking souvenirs all over the place.
But that's to make money. It's not to poke fun at yourself. It's exploiting the fact.
Okay.
So he told her a story. A few counties over, there had once been a family, butchers by trade, working in a slaughterhouse. But when the slaughterhouse closed, they didn't stop. They just changed what they were cutting. Travelers, drifters, anyone unlucky enough to cross their path. And according to him, most of the family were long dead, but one remained unaccounted for. There was a woman, a survivor, who'd been searching for him for decades. Posters, posting flyers, following leads, never let it go. The problem was identification. He wore a human mask of human skin, which made tracking him nearly impossible. At the time, it sounded like nothing more than a local ghost story, the kind of thing told to unsettle outsiders passing through. And Lila didn't think much of it. She had no reason to.
But in reality, she was closer to that story than she could have ever imagined. And before long, she would find herself walking a path not unlike that of Jenny. Not unlike that. The one. Why do I keep saying that?
Not unlike the one Jenny had survived over 30 years earlier.
Yep, that's the line. Let me try it again. Not unlike the one Jenny had survived over 30 years earlier.
Good job.
Get it?
What
Yep.
I can do now for you is I can say the sentence and you can repeat it going forward if you'd like. Would that make matters easier?
Do you know what we'll end up being like then?
What?
Did you ever see the Family Guy took the piss out of it, but in SNL, the original season of SNL, very first season,
Yeah.
when Chevy Chase did the Weekend Update,
Yeah.
I can't remember the black dude's fucking name, but they used to do a Weekend Update for the deaf,
Mm.
and then Chevy would say a line, and then the dude would be in like a little square,
And he'd be shouting
and
it.
it would be like, "Welcome to a Weekend Update. I'm Chevy Chase, and you're not." Welcome to Weekend Update. I'm Chevy Chase, and you're not. And we'll move on to the next segment. So that's what we're going to do from now on. We're just going to put a little box around you. I'll try and say a line, and you just
I'll roar it
for everybody to hear. Anyway,
so the auction in Harlow had been planned meticulously down to the last detail. Richter had done his part, making the place look more than acceptable. But even the best laid plans can go awry. And what started as a small issue would blow up into something much, much bigger. A Confederate flag hung from what was supposed to be the old, empty orphanage.
and I mean, for people who are not American and don't understand that, the Confederate flag obviously was the flag of the South, which would have been heavily associated with the side that wanted to keep slavery. And
it was the side that wanted to keep slavery.
That caused the Civil War in America over, the North and the South and slavery. Actually, there's an Irish association to this as well, because each county in Ireland has its own little nickname. We live in Kerry, which is known as the Kingdom. What's Tipperary?
The Premier County.
The Premier County. And then the next county over from Kerry is called Cork, and that's called the Rebel County. And their colours are red and white. So Kerry and Cork have a huge rivalry in football, Gaelic football. And they would in hurling, but Cork are brilliant at hurling and we suck. But
except for the village we live in for some reason.
To the most part, Kerry are the kings of football. I mean, we hold the record for the most All-Ireland championships in the country. But every now and again, Cork would get pretty good and that rivalry would heat up because you have the Munster Championship. So each province has have their championship, and then each winner of each province would go on to the semi-finals and the finals and shit like that. But so from going to games, whenever Kerry were playing Cork, it was a sea of Confederate flags.
I never knew that.
Sea of Confederate flags because they're the rebel county.
Is that not kind of frowned on, that flag now?
No, they don't. It's gone now.
Okay.
This was up until maybe the last 10 years.
Okay.
In the last 10 years or so, it's the same way the Dukes of Hazzard used to have the Confederate flag on top of the General Lee. Nowadays, if you were to release another Dukes of Hazzard movie or release another Dukes of Hazzard reboot or something like that, the General Lee probably wouldn't be called the General Lee, and the General Lee probably wouldn't have the Confederate flag on top. They made a joke out of it in the Dukes of Hazzard movie that they made with Sean William Scott.
Yeah, I remember that.
And Johnny Knoxville, where they had to go into the city for some reason to say, I think it was to save Daisy Duke or something like that, and they pull up in the hood, and when they pull up, there's a bunch of kind of guys hanging outside
they're like
of a liquor store, And they see the top of the car, and the two of the guys are in the car. They're like, "Oh shit, drive."
Yeah, my cousin had one hanging in his room, but I'm pretty sure it was just to cover the booby picture that was underneath it when you lifted it up.
So I was Shawshanking his booby pictures.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So it was out of reach from the ground, but positioned right next to the window, the Confederate flag, that is. That's okay, I got it in there. Dante and Melody entered the structure that they believed was theirs without announcing themselves, and were shocked to find it still fully furnished, packed with pictures and trinkets decorating the home. They were even more shocked to find someone still living there. Virginia Ginny McCumber. She was elderly at this point, late 80s, kind of pushing 90, and she insisted that she still held the deed to the house and that the bank had no claim to it. Dante dismissed this as the ramblings of an old woman who had lost her grasp on reality.
Makes me dislike him even more.
Yes, and without doing his due diligence, my God, I just can't do alliterated words, he used the card given to him by Sheriff Hathaway and called the police to have her removed. When the police arrived, they tried to explain things to Ginny, who now required oxygen from a tank just to move around.
Do you know what we'll do? I'll get you a shit ton of Marvel comic books and have you read them, because all the names there are
Alliterated.
Peter Parker.
Oh, Peter Parker. Peter Parker is easy. Because I can say Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers and Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. Whereas the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. That's no problem for me. It's
well,
just...
Firefly Family fucking catches you every time.
Every time.
Okay. All right.
So, they told her the orphanage had been sold by the bank and was no longer hers, and that she would be placed in a care facility better equipped to support her in her old age. But Ginny insisted that they were wrong. She couldn't leave her home, and more importantly, she couldn't leave her boy alone, the last of the orphans. The argument escalated, voices raised back and forth, and that noise drew him out of his room. Standing at the top of the stairs, towering over everybody, was Bubba Sawyer, though neither the owners nor the police understood who he really was.
And what's worse is they didn't understand what she was saying. When she was saying she couldn't leave, it wasn't a case of I won't or I don't want to. It's
I can't.
You have no idea what's locked away inside here. And if I leave,
it's coming for you.
Yeah. So Hathaway dismissed Bubba at the time as simply Ginny's boy.
Yeah.
Saying he was harmless. But again, if only they fucking knew, right? What was being
contained,
incarcerated within that fucking orphanage and held there by Ginny. Now, if she is as unhealthy as they said,
it was only a matter of time.
Yeah, he was eventually. This was going to happen one way or another. But Bubba's 81 years old at this stage. I mean, how much longer did he have left before he couldn't perform?
Maybe her idea was, I'll know when it's my time, and this oxygen tank is going to take the two of us out.
Maybe.
Then suddenly, Ginny grabbed her arm and collapsed. Bubba rushed down the stairs and scooped her up in his arms. Hathaway directed him toward the police van. They needed to move quickly to get the elderly woman help. Melody, feeling guilty about the situation, and rightly so, wanted to go with them. But Dante's girlfriend, Ruth Hudson, insisted she take her place. The investors would expect to see Melody when they arrived, so Ruth went with the sheriff and promised to report back with updates. And after they left, the situation only got worse. The guilt began to eat at Melody, and she insisted Dante find the deed to the house in their files. Something to give her peace of mind that they hadn't just forced an elderly woman out of a home that was rightfully hers. Dante searched through the folders of deeds, but found nothing. He tried to calm her, suggesting that he must have left it back at the office, but that didn't satisfy Melody. She insisted they search the house. If Ginny really did have the deed, it would be somewhere inside. So they went to look. Little did she know, at the same time, a beast was waking from a long slumber, and 30 years of aggression was about to come with him.
Yeah, this eviction almost makes Bubba like a
hero.
Karma. You know, coming back to bite you in the ass.
Again, he is a guard dog.
Yep, and we will talk about
in
that
the nicest way possible. Yeah. I'm not dehumanizing him, but that's what this is what this is showing him.
And we do get into this in a few minutes about, you know, this will feel like to him like history repeating itself over and over and over and over and over again.
So the poor man probably had PTSD.
Yeah, but we'll talk about it. It's coming up, so let's not dig too late. Let's not get into it right now.
Sorry, I'll give it out to me. So what happened next is unknown, but we can piece parts of it together from the timeline of deaths and the scene left behind. So not long after leaving Harlow, Sheriff Hathaway called it in. Ginny had passed away, and the next communication came roughly 30 minutes later. The man who ran the gas station we spoke about earlier picked up a distress call over his CB radio. The whispering voice of Ruth Hudson. Please help. The old lady died. We crashed. He killed the sheriff. Help. Anyone. He's still here.
Yeah, no. Nothing in that message explicitly screams Letherface.
No.
But the gas station owner had made a promise to Jenny. Any mention of violence, any sign of something like this happening in Texas, she was to be contacted immediately.
So that's exactly what he did. Jenny didn't hesitate. She headed straight for Harlow, scanning the roads for any sign of a crash, and she found it after dark at around 8 p.m. At the scene, she discovered Hathaway dead, stabbed through the neck, and his deputy, Jolyon Coy, was also dead under some similar circumstances. Ruth Hudson lay nearby, stabbed through the heart. The crash site sat deep within a cornfield. Jenny followed the trail left behind, the path carved through the crops by something large, something heavy. And that's when she found Ginny, and her face had been removed. Her body had been rearranged, twisted into something resembling a shrine. That was all Jenny needed to see. This wasn't speculation anymore. This wasn't another false lead. This was real. This was something pulled straight from the old Sawyer case files. She had found him, Leatherface. And finally, she believed she had her chance to end it before he could do any more damage. What she didn't realise was that she was already too late. Because by the time she arrived, the killings had already started. And bodies were already dropping in Harlow.
No, I mean, I've seen pictures of this shrine, and to take us, it's almost like a full circle moment with Nubbins and it's been so long now I can't remember the cop's name, but the cop and his daughter's head on top of the grave.
Oh yeah. I can't think of his name.
Basically started the whole fucking run of investigating that led to the first downfall of the Sawyers.
Yeah.
And then we see what Chop Top / Otis was capable with his artistic integrity. You know,
integrity.
They like to like in Bubba's head, he would have been. It was like giving her a headstone. It was like giving her something special. You know, making something out of her. But it was deformed. Where her body was twisted, her limbs were in weird positioning. The head was on top, skinless. Obviously, Bubba hadn't been wearing skin for quite some time, so we find out later that he was in fact wearing any skin now.
Yeah.
Leatherface was back and in full effect.
Great to see you again, Leatherface.
Now, let's take a second to look at all of this through Bubba's eyes. Because like I said, we were talking about it a minute ago. I just said we need to get through it a little bit before we talked about this. Because since 1973, he had been stuck in a cycle. He would have family, structure, a sense of belonging and meaning. Then his home would be invaded by young people who upended everything he knew. He would lose that structure, lose that meaning, and most of all, lose his family. And yes, by this point, he was a man in his early 80s. Like I said earlier on, 81 years of age.
But time hadn't diminished the monster. He was still huge, still hulking, and still strong. He had seen the cycle repeat itself again and again, and every time it ended the same way. Alone, confused, and filled with grief.
So the anger he had buried, the rage that had been tempered for decades under Ginny's care, was now fully unleashed, fully untethered, and fully unrelenting.
After building a shrine to the woman who had cared for him, the one person who understood him and helped him survive in a civilized world, he made his way back to Harlow. And when he arrived, he had found history repeating itself once again. Dante and Melody entered his home. They were searching for a deed they hoped they wouldn't find. Dante was downstairs when Bubba returned, and Melody was upstairs. She found the deed in Ginny's room, locked in a small box on the dressing table. But before she could process what she'd found, she heard it. The sound of a struggle downstairs. Dante screaming in pain, and then silence. And just for a moment. Before the sound of heavy footsteps hit the stairs, she panicked and hid under the bed. From there, she watched. A man wearing a flesh mask entered the room, carrying a sledgehammer. He swung it into the wall, smashing through it with ease, and from inside the cavity, he pulled out his old weapon of choice, a chainsaw. The same one given to him years earlier by Tinker. Engraved into it were the words from his brother, Drayton. The saw is family. He then sat at the dressing table and began applying makeup to the face that he'd taken from Ginny McCumber.
So we're back to default setting here.
Pretty much. Meanwhile, Dante had regained consciousness. He crawled his way outside, and by then night had fallen and the weather had turned. Rain poured down, washing the blood from his face. His jaw was barely hanging on. Richter was the first to find him, as the group of young investors had already gathered on the bus that they had arrived in. With Richter was Dante's assistant, Catherine Allen. Richter told her to call the police and to keep everyone on the bus. In hindsight, that would prove to be a fatal decision, because Richter still had the keys.
Yeah, earlier that day in the heat of the argument over Ginny, Richter, who I would assume if you only have one neighbor in the entire town, you're probably going to get on well. We're probably going to know her pretty well.
Yeah.
So Richter had gotten pissed off with the whole incident over Ginny. You know, he didn't even know she was dead at this point, but you know.
Yeah.
So he had taken the keys out of the bus and out of Dante's car and was holding them hostage, essentially, until Dante could show him the deed to the house and prove to him that the property was 100% in his name and not still in Ginny's.
Yep.
Now, everyone on that bus was essentially stranded because of it. Miles from hell.
Yep. Dante died in the street, in the rain, unable to survive the injuries he had just sustained. And Richter had then entered the orphanage with his gun drawn. And as he approached the room where Melody and Bubba were, Melody used her foot to shift a mirror just enough to warn him that Bubba was waiting behind the door. But it didn't matter. Bubba was too strong, and even with the warning, Richter was overpowered after a brief struggle. Melody watched from under the bed as Bubba brought the sledgehammer down on Richter's head again and again until nothing recognizable remained. Then he picked up a chainsaw and left the room. Before the first blow had landed, Richter had managed to pull the keys from his pocket. He was looking directly at Melody, trying to get the keys to her. Once Bubba left, she grabbed the keys and ran. She made it to the bus, and inside she told Lila that they needed to go now. But it was already too late, and what happened next would be seen by the entire world.
Yeah, the figure long debated, long dismissed, long mythologized. The Sawyer brother stepped out of the shadows and into the most public stage possible. Social fucking media.
Aye.
When Bubba entered the bus, the influencers did what influencers do. They pulled out their phones and they went live. You can hear in the footage voices mocking him, calling him disgusting, telling him he was about to be cancelled. Now, I would like to state at this point, because in one interview, I was called an influencer, and I will tell you now, I am in no way an influencer. Do not be influenced by me. I am a podcaster. I tell stories. That's it. I don't want
I don't want an influencer title. No, thank you.
Ugh.
Content creators. So Bubba had a different idea. He started the chainsaw and showed them what real cancellation looked like. The footage is chaotic, blurred, distorted, but the screams and the sound of the chainsaw are unmistakable. By the time it was over, more than 30 people lay dead, dismembered and destroyed.
So now we know what we have to do to get some attention online, here, right?
Yeah.
Bubba just attacked the wrong side to make this attention positive. Get my chainsaw, find me a bus full of MAGA influencers and Zionist pricks, and I'll go make us some history.
So Melody knew what was coming, so she grabbed Lila and together they escaped through a bathroom window. And as they ran, that's when they ran into Jenny. At first, they thought they'd found a savior, a woman who looked like law enforcement, armed, composed, ready. But the situation shifted almost immediately. Jenny asked them one question. Is he coming for you? The frightened girls said yes. Jenny replied, then we stay right here until he does.
Yeah, she was using them as bait and she didn't have to wait long.
No. Melody protested, begging her to just leave, to get in the car and drive. But Jenny was done running. The aging survivor stepped out of the vehicle, determined to finish what she had started back in 1994. She came face to face with Bubba, keeping her shotgun trained on him the entire time. She asked if he remembered her. Then she realized he didn't.
Yeah, to him, she was nothing.
Nope.
Just another body.
Yep.
Another piece of meat. Another animal passing through the slaughterhouse. That has to hit you hard mentally. You've invested your life in the pursuit of this man. And to him, you're not worth the space in his hard drive.
Yeah. In that moment, anger, frustration, disbelief cost her. She broke focus, and Bubba did not hesitate. The chainsaw, idling at his side, roared to life as he drove it straight into her torso, lifting her off the ground and throwing her aside into a pile of discarded rubbish. And in the chaos, Melody noticed something. Jenny had dropped the keys. She grabbed them, jumped into the driver's seat and took off at speed, but lost control of the SUV, crashing straight into Richter's garage. The vehicle was wrecked. Melody was trapped, and she told Lila to run.
Yeah, when Letherface appeared, Melody broke. Through tears, she apologized for what she had done to Ginny, but to Bubba, it meant nothing. He kept on coming.
Yeah. Lila tried to intervene, raising the shotgun, but when she pulled the trigger, nothing happened. Empty. Then a shot rang out. Jenny, still alive, barely, she fired, hitting Bubba and forcing him back. Before succumbing to her wounds, she gave Lila one final warning. Don't run, because if you do, he'll haunt you for the rest of your days.
See, and this again wraps us back around to what we were saying at the start. The surviving an encounter with a serial killer, and the serial killer getting away,
Yeah.
it's never going to leave you.
Never.
You're never going to be comfortable around anyone again. You're always going to be suspicious of your surroundings and of the people that are around you and the people you're interacting with. You never know when these people are around you. Not to fucking harp on about them, but Dennis Rader is the best example again of that, isn't he?
Yeah.
Someone who lived within the society. You never knew it was him. And like, there's all these families that would have passed him in the street a million times over in that small little fucking town and never knew that this is the person that killed their mother, their sister, their daughter.
Pretty
it's
much.
bonkers shit. That's why you can see how this is good advice in one way, because obviously you don't want this girl to live with this forever. But bad advice, considering that no one has been able to survive this man in the 81 years that he's been running around with a chainsaw in his hand.
Yep.
Because, even as a little baby, I picture him running around with a little baby face on and a tiny little...
Like our lads had in their toy toolkits. They had a little chainsaw, little green chainsaw.
They did have a little chainsaw.
It's class. And it made the noise.
There's
There's that one, and then there was kind of like this kind of flicky thing on the bottom, and you could, if you pressed it against the table, the flicky thing moved and made kind of like noise.
The Playmobil Texas Chainsaw Massacre playset.
Oh my God, what a missed opportunity. We could have gotten little baby Leatherface masks.
Comes with real human skin and a working chain.
So, Lila took the shotgun and went after him. She tracked him into an abandoned building where he ambushed her and launched his attack. Melody followed, and she grabbed the chainsaw, and in a moment of pure desperation, she swung it upwards, catching him right on the chin, sending him crashing into a pool of water below. He sank. The two girls didn't wait. They got out, they ran. Authorities were alerted, and from that point on, the situation moved beyond local control. The feds took over. The body of Jedediah Bubba Sawyer, also known as Leatherface, was found where the girls had left it, floating in a pool of water, now red with the monster's blood. DNA testing was carried out to confirm the identity, but the result was never really in doubt.
Yep. The man born into madness in 1945, often dismissed as a story, a myth, a persona used by his family to terrify victims into submission, was officially dead at the age of 81.
And with him died the last remaining trace of the Sawyer bloodline. And with that, an end came to a massacre that had repeated itself generation after generation.
Whew. That's it. Almost
No
feels like
way.
a bit of an anticlimax there for a second. It's been a long road to get here. But after 8 episodes and more sleepless nights than I can count spent researching and writing, I can finally say it. The Sawyer Saga is over.
But something still lingers, because when you look back at everything this family did, one thing becomes clear. We said it at the beginning of this episode. The Sawyers were never truly an isolated case. It happened in Virginia. It happened in Tennessee. It happened in New York. It happened in California. Different names, same patterns, same brutality. So while we leave the Sawyers behind us, locked into history, we don't get to forget. Because out there, far from the cities, deep in the woods where no one can hear you scream, there are still places where something doesn't feel right. Places where the air feels wrong. Places where the silence isn't empty, it's waiting. And in those places, monsters still exist, waiting, hungry for the next victim, the next meal, the next massacre.
Yeah. The American National Park Tourist Board will be pissed off at us after this one.
I don't know how tourism's going so at the moment though in America, so I mean.
But that's why our next story is a bit of a palate cleanser in that regard. Because I don't want people going away from this thinking nature hides nothing but evil. So we're taking a little break next week to take care of some family obligations.
Yes.
But when we come back the week after, we leave the Sawyers behind, but not the woodland, as we discuss one of the most well-documented case of a Bigfoot sighting in history, with the story of the Hendersons and their encounter with a Bigfoot they affectionately named Harry.
I love Harry.
So, like I said there, we're not releasing anything new next week, but we're not going to leave you hanging either, right? We're going to have something. So next week, we're going to do a Patreon highlight week. We will be releasing a selection of our favorite episodes from our Patreon exclusive shows free on patreon.com/the Horrorverse Network. 7 days of free shit. No membership required to listen to these select episodes. You just go on, there, press play. If you like what you hear, then you have another 7-day free trial to listen to everything else, and then decide if you want to pay for it, which is $5 a month. Not a lot. The price of a cup of coffee once a month. And that's if you're buying a cheap coffee these days. So what we will be doing is we'll be releasing one each day to go with its usual daily routine. So on Monday, we're releasing a Witchy Mini Monsters collection where we're going to have 4 or 5 of Bunny Rose's witch stories compiled into one long mini monster. So it won't be a mini monster this week.
It'll be a mega monster.
Average size monster.
Oh, mega monster sounds better.
Okay, we'll go with mega monster this week.
Okay, cool.
Then on Tuesday, we are going to
mediocre
release...
monster? Medium monster? Mega monster.
Mediocre means average.
Oh.
We're better than that.
You said average monster. No?
Average size, I mean.
Oh.
Mediocre is talent.
Okay, we'll keep to mega monster. So in that case.
On Tuesday, we will release 2 episodes. One from Celebrity Rap Sheet and one from Playing with Bones. Wednesday, I am going to take this whole 8 episodes Sawyer Saga and turn it into one epic audio tale spanning from 1849 to 2026.
Vietnam's going to like that.
Huh?
Vietnam's going to like that.
Why?
Because a lot of...
yeah.
The
we're just going to cut out the intros and outros, and it'll be one flowing story. Yeah. All 8 episodes. It should go for about 8 hours. So it's like a full day of listening.
Nice.
Thursday and Friday, we will be dropping episodes of It's Alive Action. And then Saturday, a best of with the Amy Rose photo drop. And that's an easy one because all of your pictures are. Oh, we got to change that to Bunny Rose photo drop now. So we will be calling it Hottest of Bunny Rose.
Thank you.
And that'll be more accurate. Then Sunday, I'll be reposting my 2 interviews with the R.I.P. man actors Owen Llewellyn and Georgie Ray. If you haven't heard them, go check them out. And better yet, check out Rest in Peace Man, Rest in Pain Man 1 now, and consider throwing them a few bucks as well for R.I.P. Man 2, the Kickstarter, because the story must continue.
Yes. And don't forget to check us out on all socials at Alive Pod and at Bunny Rose IAA for updates on everything that we're doing. And you can catch me every Monday night from 10 p.m. to 12 a.m. Irish time on Twitch for Play and Slay with Bunny Rose, where I'm currently playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla.
So, We will be back in 2 weeks' time with more tales from the Horrorverse. See you all then. Same level of time, same Horrorverse channel. Okay, love you. Bye.
Hey, lady, love you. Bye-bye.